nation and you want to turn the tide, you got Four Seasons Pest Solutions on your side.
My name's Scott Underwood. I'm with Oldham Chemicals, and I'm actually from right here in Somerset, Kentucky. I went to high school at Somerset High School, graduated a long time ago in 1987, but I'm about 5 minutes away, so it was real easy to get here. So thanks for asking me to talk, Matt, appreciate it, and we'll get rolling here and try to get you out of here for lunch. As far as my qualifications, I've got 28 years of industry experience in pest control, manufacturing, 20 years in distribution, and 16 years at Oldham Chemicals. Why 16 years at Oldham Chemicals? Because they treat customers, employees, and vendors like family. Robert Hausman, who's my warehouse manager, in July was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He's doing very well, but Oldham continued to pay him through all of his treatments. He'll be back hopefully in March, but that's hard to find. So, you know, they treat us like family, and we try to treat our customers, our vendors, and everybody like family. Oldham Chemical is a family-owned business since 1965. We're in the structural pest control market only. And we are a regional supplier of pest products. We've got 14 locations in the Southeast and the Midwest. We're not owned by a multinational corporation, and we're not owned by Rentokil. I don't know how many people know, but Rentokil was they purchased Terminex last year. They are the largest, and they're buying companies, you know, left and right. So they are a competitor of your all's, whether you know that or not.
Scott, just so we're clear, I want everybody to understand that if we're not buying products from companies like Oldham and smaller family-owned companies, there's probably going to come a time when we're going to have no choice but to buy from companies like Rent-to-Kill. If we don't keep these smaller suppliers in place, we'll end up buying from our competition, and I believe we'll regret that.
Thanks, Matt. Yep. And so from our family to yours, for over 57 years, I'd like to give a shout out to Matt Snowball. Please keep him in your prayers. He was our KPMA president. Last year, he got really sick, and he's been going through a lot. He resigned as president of KPMA last year. He's doing okay, but please keep him in your prayers. And he's got a Snowball Pest Control up in Covington. With that, we'll get right into it here. Professional technician safety. Number one rule, read the label. The label has everything on it to help you do your job. How to treat, what pests are on it, everything that you need to do to be the professional and help your customers treat for that particular pest. It has precautionary statements, which has your hazards to humans and domestic animals, your signal word, which is caution, warning, or danger, statement of practical treatment or first aid if you are exposed, environmental hazards, directions for use, pest controlled, storage and disposal, spill procedure, and the labels do change. So make sure, you know, a few years back we had Nick was talking a little about the pyrethroid restrictions that were added to the labels. So these labels do change. Make sure you're getting it. I recommend you get your labels from the manufacturer's website, or you know, it is on the product itself when you buy it from your distributor. And the label is the law. Labels are legal documents. They are approved by the federal EPA. Manufacturers spend millions of dollars getting the products registered through the EPA. They do extensive testing. So the rates on those labels, they've tested them extensively, and make sure you're following the rates. It's the first source of information regarding that particular pesticide use. The parts of a pesticide label, brand name, Termidor, Advion WDG are a couple. The manufacturer, the chemical name, which is a long, drawn out, 50 word or 50 letter word or words. And we don't usually go by that because it's, number one, it's too hard to pronounce. But the common name, fipronil, which would be Termidor, Taurus is another one. Doxycarb, which would be your Advion. It also has the EPA registration number. Other parts, the personal protective equipment, and make sure you're looking at that, because a lot of the products, like Advion WDG, it's a limited. You don't have to do what you had to do with like Demon or some of those products, that we were using 15, 20 years ago. So make sure you're looking at that when you're mixing the product and you're following that. Environmental protection statements, so how it affects the environment. Restricted entry statements, if there are any. I'd say 90% of the products that we're using today, and I'm going to cover some of the oral LD50s on a few of these products, but they are a lot different than the products we were using 15, 20 years ago. So they're a lot less toxicity to mammals, to humans, and so we've come a long way with that. Advion WDG, the Alpine WDG are two products that I can think of off the top of my head that are really easy to use. They stay in solution, and they're safe, which you're not supposed to say safe, but they're a lot safer than the stuff that we used to use years ago. And let's see here. A safety information posting, so wash before eating or drinking, after contact, after work. Wash your work clothes separately. Important information to keep in the vehicle, and most of this is at our fingertips on our phones now, or on the actual product we're using. But the SDS, which used to be MSDS, now it's the SDS. The SDS they changed. The MSDS used to have caution, warning, or danger. It used to give the signal word. They've changed that worldwide to now just warning or danger. So if you're wondering why, if you look at a label and it's got a caution label, but the SDS, or a caution signal word, but the SDS has a warning, that's why. That they changed that to be the world standard a few years back. Emergency response guide, spill kit, your truck inventory, insurance card, vehicle registration, accident report form, which, with the inventive phones, a lot of that is at your fingertips now. Fire extinguishers and appropriate chemical tank placards if needed. I think there are two products that we sell that have to be placarded for DOT. One of it is Demon. I think the other one is Baseline. But those have to be placarded when we're shipping. But most of those products, those are older technologies, and most of the products we're using today won't be placarded during transportation. Storage of pesticides. Pesticides should always be stored in a secure, dry place where you can't come into contact with them, locked away, and they should always be stored in the original labeled container. You don't want to be switching containers that don't have a label on them, because that is definitely a no-no with the state and with the EPA. The labels should be plainly visible, and obviously, you don't ever want to store pesticides in other containers. Always keep the lids tightened when they're in use. Don't permit eating, drinking, or smoking in rooms where pesticides are stored. Install exhaust fans. That's not always possible, but they can help regulate the moisture with exhaust fans or dehumidifiers. Eye wash or shower stations should be available just outside the storage building. Routinely check containers for leaks, breaks, or corrosion. So if you've got old chemicals sitting in your storage shed, make sure that you're inspecting that. If it's starting to crack or leak or something, make sure you get rid of that and dispose of it properly. What is an oral LD50 rating? Well, oral LD50, can anybody tell me what an oral LD50 is? Or what LD50 stands for? Well, you can read it up there, but it's yeah, 50% of the lab rats. So if it kills 50% of the lab rats at that particular amount, but an example would be an oral LD50 of 1,500 milligrams per kilogram. means that a lab rat will potentially die by consuming 1,500 milligrams per kilogram of body weight of a certain substance. And this is, these are the different EPA oral toxicities. You've got Category 1, which is danger, poison, highly toxic. Category 2, which is a warning or moderately toxic. Category 3, caution or slightly toxic. And Category 4, not required, non-toxic. And we do have products that we're using right now that have come out in the last 5 to 10 years that are in this Category 4 up here. And you must use EPA-registered pesticides at for-hire pest control. So I know a few years back I got a call on, I think it was cedar oil, and somebody was trying to sell cedar oil for bed bugs, but it wasn't an EPA-registered product. So you got to be careful with that, because if it ever comes back on you and you weren't using a product that was designed for pest control and registered through the EPA, there could be potential liability problems with it. This is an interesting slide. So we got caffeine, which is 192. So the lower the milligram per kilogram, the more lethal it is, right? So caffeine is 192 milligrams per kilogram, Category 2. Aspirin, 1,000 milligrams per kilogram, Category 3. Vitamin C, 1,900 milligrams per kilogram. You get to temperate here, 1,044, Category 4. Talstar, 632, so that's a little lower, but that's also Category 4. Polyzone, 5,000 milligrams per kilogram. And you know, most adulticides are a Category 3 or 4, and most of the products that we're using today in our industry are a Category 4. So, you know, regardless of what the news media and everybody would have you believe, I mean, the products we're using, and they're effective. So, and these manufacturers spend millions of dollars bringing these products to market, and you know, they're not going to bring it to market if it's not going to work. We've got professional obligations to the customer, to the environment, and also to society with our contracts that we have with our customers. So no pesticides are considered safe, and this is by the EPA. They can only be applied in a non-harmful manner by qualified applicators taking all necessary precautions to minimize exposure to the applicator and all other non-target organisms. And it is our professional duty to follow all pesticide label directions and provide service in a way that avoids any significant risk to people, pets, property, and the environment. And we are the professional. They hire us to do a job, and you know, a lot of customers now with the internet, and you know, they may search out what we're doing. They may tell us that they know exactly because you know what we're doing because they found it on the internet. But we're the professionals. We do this every single day. We're licensed. We're highly trained, and you know, we're out killing bed bugs every day. We're killing cockroaches every day. We're doing rodent jobs every single day. So the customer doesn't do that. We do, and we know what we're doing. You know, and we do training classes like this, you know, every year. So that makes us the professional, and we know what we're doing when we go in there. The 3 routes of exposure: absorption, so through the skin, touch it, inhalation, and also ingestion. So there are LD50s for each of those. You know, Nick was talking about the rodenticide changes. So what they're talking about doing is when you're loading a bait station with rodenticide, you know, they're talking about making you wear a respirator when you're doing that, even though there is absolutely no risk of inhalation from rodenticides. So it's just kind of, I mean, they're just throwing stuff out there with any real science, you know. So what's the real science and what's the junk science? Always try to minimize exposure. So it's a basic rule for personal safety. Pesticide use cycle from the cradle to the grave, we call it in our industry, but it's from the selection to the purchase to transporting the product, storing the product, mixing and diluting, actually applying the product, and then finally the disposal of the container. So what's the proper way to dispose of a container? There are some products though, make sure you're looking at the label. You can actually throw them in the trash now. You're not required to what? Triple rinse and cut the container so nobody else can use it, right? I mean, that's the typical way. And still most of the products are like that, but there are a few out there that aren't. Spill containment, with a spill, make sure you got a spill response kit, the procedure to stop the bleeding. As far as cleaning up a pesticide spill, you want to make sure you stop it at the source. Number one, turn off the pump. Make sure stop the leak, and then clean it up with absorbent material, and then sweep it up, with the kitty litter, put it in a bucket, and make sure you dispose of it properly. Let's keep going here. Personal protection equipment. As I said before, a lot of that's changing with the advent of some of these new products, but it is respirators, gloves, coveralls, long pants, long sleeves, eye goggles, and then also safety wipes. Safety with equipment. You can see here, that's kind of a dangerous situation. You got this lady walking here, you got two guys holding a ladder. He's up there changing a bulb. So be careful on ladders. I know several people, there's a guy up in Ohio that's fallen off a ladder like 2 times, and it's just, onto concrete. Lucky he's still alive, and then another customer fell onto the concrete 20 feet. He's actually doing pretty well, but he broke his back, and it was really touch and go there for a while. So be really careful on ladders. Fire prevention, have a fire extinguisher in your chemical storage room in your vehicle. Expect the unexpected, have safety meetings. Have your vehicle safety inspections, fire drills, and stage a pesticide spill. Because if you're in the heat of the moment, what's the first thing you do if you've got, so your hose is leaking? What's the first thing you do? You shut it off, right? But if you're in the heat of the moment and you haven't practiced that and actually done that, who knows how you're going to react. So make sure you're, the best way or a great way to do it is to stage a pesticide spill. My pest control joke for the day is, have you ever smelled mothballs? How'd you get their little legs apart? All right, moving on. 10 questions on formulation. Can the formulation be applied safely in sensitive environments? And I'm being recorded. Maybe I should have. Sorry about that. Can the formulation be applied safely in sensitive environments? Commercial kitchens, make sure if you're applying product in commercial kitchens, it's labeled for commercial kitchens. Or if you're applying it in hospitals, or you're applying in nursing homes, any type of sensitive account. Will the formulation cause phytotoxicity in plants that are treated? Most of the products we're using, which are water-based, they're not the oil-based like they were in years past. They're not going to have, they're not going to kill Mrs. Jones' plants. But if you kill Mrs. Jones' plants, she's going to be really upset, and it may cost you $1,000 or $2,000 to get them replaced. Is the formulation effective against the target pest? There are, brown recluse, a good example. Some products aren't labeled for brown recluse. If it's not labeled for brown recluse, it's probably not going to work on brown recluse. There's a reason for that. Or if it's not labeled for spiders. So make sure that particular product is labeled for your intended pest. Will the formulation perform well on the surfaces to be treated? How will environmental factors like temperature, humidity, and light affect the formulation? In the summer, 100% humidity, 90-degree temperatures, blazing heat, rain, all those factors, they are going to affect the length of that product, how long it'll last. There are products out there, Suspend Polyzone is one that claims 90 days, on the label, and also MGK Onslaught Fast Cap, they claim 90 days residual on the label. So, the manufacturer claims that. So, those products are out there, but in the summer, maybe not. Is the product cost effective? Does the formulation mix easily, and can it be tank mixed with other pesticides? And will the formulation run off or drift? So if you've got, 12-mile-an-hour winds going and you're spraying, this guy's spraying a tree here, probably not a good idea to be spraying that out there. You're looking for trouble. We'll just keep going. Will there be a problem with the visible residues on treated surfaces? Good example of that. I got some of the Max Force fly spot bait when it first came out, and we have flies that come in from our backyard. We're on Corps of Engineer, back up to Corps of Engineer property there, and we've got dogs. So I sprayed the fly spot bait all around the windows, on the windows. My wife gets home, and I got white all over the windows. So I had to go back and scrape them off and clean it. And it's a great product, but you just got to be careful with it, because if you get it on the windows, it will be white. The Alpine from BSF, the Alpine fly spray, does not leave. It goes on clear. You're not going to have that kind of residue with it. And then are there regulatory issues that may limit the use of the product? Going back to the pyrethroid restrictions, always read the label before using a product and follow all label directions. Health and safety statistics. 50,000 deaths from auto accidents annually, typically 17,000 from handgun incidents, 3,000 deaths from swimming, less than 10 deaths from pesticides, and those are basically in agricultural settings and suicides. So that kind of shows you in a nutshell, what we're up against. And we are highly regulated in our industry as opposed to the consumer market. They can go into Home Depot, they can buy the stuff, online, do-it-yourself pests and all that. They can go out and spray it, nothing happens. But since we're for hire, they've got the microscope on it. So make sure that you're doing it correctly. And risk versus perceived risk, public image, real safety issues, junk science versus real science. And there's a lot of that out there, just like with the EPA restrictions that they're talking about with rodenticides. Sensitive situations. Sensitive situation can be any situation where someone has special concerns over the use of pesticides. Can be any account. I'm just going to skip through this. Who determines sensitive? Regulatory agency, the pest control operator, you, the pest control operator, the customer, owner of the company, employees, and also the general public. Just some examples of sensitive accounts: hospitals, nursing homes, apartments, schools, restaurants, hotels, resorts, theme parks, zoos, pet stores, modes of transportation, food processing plants, and food stores. Pretty much everything that we use, or probably 90% of the products we use for pest control, will kill fish. So you have to be aware of that, and you definitely don't want to get in a situation where you run into a koi pond or something like that, and you it kills some koi, and then they're all of a sudden that $100 fish is a $1,000 fish. So be careful. Sensitive people, asthmatics, children, elderly, chemophobics, the legitimately ill or infirm. You roll up on a customer and suddenly there's a sign, new addition. That just became a sensitive account. So multiple chemical sensitivity. This is kind of an interesting thing. The immune system is thought to have been permanently compromised, damaged by previous exposure to chemicals. It is a real medical term. Many MCS patients experience flu-like symptoms. There are no consistent symptoms and no clearly identified cause or causes. So headaches, fatigue. I had a headache last night. I was really tired. Not really dizzy, but watery eyes because of allergies and all that. So it's kind of interesting, some of the stuff that comes up. But sensitive pets, fish, definitely number one. Birds as well. The smaller animals, rodents, and then also elderly pets. So remember, nearly every account you service today is or contains sensitive situations. Media hot topics, China, the supply chain, it's really affected us last year. I think some of that's smoothed out, but we had issues getting some products. Luckily, if it was a certain product, say Onslaught, there were other products that we could get, but MGK couldn't get the plastic containers from China in order to put the stuff into the bottle. So in order to put it into the bottle, they couldn't get that. So lots of stuff like that. Fortunately, we did have replacement products to be able to replace them with. Another Catchmaster rep told me that they would buy the containers, the big shipping containers from China previously before COVID for $2,000 and fill that thing full. Well, that went up to $14,000 last year in order to get that shipping container across. So it's just craziness. But I think it's smoothing out. I think we're starting to see some things a little more steady. So hopefully that'll be the case in 2023. Airlines, employee issues, Putin, global warming, green movement, pesticides, always a hot topic in the media, and guns. Economic issues, rising interest rates, employee issues. It was so hard to find. It took 5 months for us to get assistant warehouse manager for Oldham in Louisville, and I was covering the warehouse. So I was covering the warehouse during the week, 5 days a week, driving up there. I'd stay up there, but took us 5 months to find somebody, and also it was just really tough to find somebody. And I was trying to do my sales job, and I put together meetings for KPMA and all that. So I was pretty much burnt out last year. By Christmas, I was pretty much burnt out. And we're seeing that a lot. I saw the New York this morning, the nurses in New York are striking. It's because burnout. I mean, some of the hospitals, they're short 500 nurses. Can you imagine, going through that environment every day on a daily basis, short that much staff? I mean, it's just crazy. Inflation, driving up prices for everything. National debt, housing market, international trade. The IRS, they're going to hire 80,000 new IRS agents. They're saying they won't come after the middle class. Yeah, right. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully that won't come through. Maybe they could at least just cut it in half. Or get customer service. Get some customer service. I've been trying for 6 months to get a hold of an IRS, a local office in Corbin. They won't even see people in Corbin or Louisville. And it just gets me. I mean, so instead of trying to go after people, why don't you hire people that can answer questions and do that kind of thing? So hopefully that's at least part of it. We'll see. P&P issues, finding technicians, getting the work done with less staff, training, health insurance, higher costs, supply chain. Factors that influence the customer. We can grow in a good economy and a bad economy. The last recession we had, and Nick's right. I mean, what a great industry. What other industry can you be in where you've got a recession and you can have 10% growth in that year? And that's what we're seeing. If you can get the work done, if you can find the people, then you can do it, and you can grow in a good economy or a bad economy, because people can't stand bugs, and for good reason. They cause disease. Rodents cause disease. They need us. We're in public health. Why do customers quit our service? 1% die, 4% move away, 6% develop new relationships, 16% price or service satisfaction, 74% indifference on the part of the technician or the pest control company. Retention is growth. Some of these larger companies may lose not retain 20% of their customers. If they would, retain those customers, that's 20% growth. So I mean, if you're retaining your customer base, if you have good retention, you're doing a good job, you're taking care of your customers, you're going to grow. Even by word of mouth. I mean, word of mouth is so key in this industry. So you're going to grow. Customers are smarter, ? With the internet. I was talking about that a little earlier. Generation X, Y, and millennials. I don't know about you all, but my 17-year-old son, I mean, he's a whiz at that phone, and the computers and everything else. But it seems like the older I get, The more technology changes, because it changes quick, you know, it's a little harder as you get older to keep up. So technology, cell phones, you know, great tool. You know, when I first started in the industry, we didn't have cell phones. So you had to call, you had to go to the office, sit down at the desk, call your customers a day before, make sure everything was scheduled. You know, now we've got cell phones, so we can call if we're going to be a little late or something like that. Give your customer a call. GPS, I started in this business when we had paper maps. So I got lost a lot. I still get lost sometimes with the GPS, but not nearly as much. So, you know, it's I mean, that has saved so much time. It's amazing. Marketing information. I got a few minutes here. I'm just going to kind of. So women make more than 80% of all the consumer purchasing decisions for pest control. More than half of the purchase managers are women now in commercial. Customer perception, pesticides are safe when applied by a professional. It's a necessary evil. Prevention of diseases, West Nile and other diseases. Just communicate with the customer, so key. Find out as much as you can about that pest to help you identify it. But what do customers expect from us? They expect honesty, integrity, product knowledge, treatment knowledge, a fair price. When you're performing the treatment, communication is a key. Make sure you're doing proper inspections, IPM procedures, treatment protocol. Have a scope of service that you can give them in writing, telling them exactly what you're going to do. Follow up. You know, do you have a quality control program? Image of the industry is fair, honest, trustworthy, that we're knowledgeable as PMPs, and that we're the protectors of health. Professionalism, image, knowledge, and attitude. Satisfied customers receive good service and feel like they're getting what they paid for. Technicians create satisfied customers by controlling pest problems, communicating well, being dependable, being friendly and polite. Loyal customers feel they're getting more than they pay for and are always delivered more than they're promised. So that's what we're shooting for. If we can get there, everything else will take care of itself. Be on time. Always think about how you can add value to your service. And I think that will get us to lunch. I think I'm a couple minutes early maybe, but does anybody have any questions?
Any pest, any season, we're the solution. At our family-owned and operated local institution. If you're dealing with an infestation and you want to turn the tide, you got 4 Seasons Pest Solutions on your side.